Dear students, today's topic of my lecture, current electricity part 1. In it, the first topic that you have to study, electric current. So that you have already studied in lower classes. Now further you understand, electric current can be defined as rate of flow of charge through any cross section of the conductor. It is basically represented by capital I. If we say that Q be the charge flowing through any cross section of the conductor in time t, then the electric current can be written as I is equal to Q upon T. And this formula is valid when the rate of flow of charge is steady, means constant. If rate of flow of charge varies with time, then the formula can be written as for electric current I equal to dq upon dt. Now from here we can say that the SI unit of current is ampere or by the formula coulomb per second. Now different types of the currents are there. The first one is steady current, that is the magnitude of the current does not change with time. And the second one is varying current whose magnitude varies with time. And the third one is alternating current whose magnitude varies continuously and the direction changes periodically. All these three types of the currents are shown here in the graph. This A line that is representing the steady current and the B and C line they are representing the varying current whose magnitude changes with time. And the D line that represents alternating current. In this case, magnitude changes continuously as well as direction changes periodically. So this is known as types of currents. Now you understand whether the electric current is a scalar or a vector quantity. Electric current is a scalar quantity because for its addition, scalar additions are applicable, that is vector additions are not applicable in this case. So electric current which is represented by an arrow in a wire, as you can see in the diagram, that only indicates the direction of positive charge, and these arrows does not represent the vector because in case of the current the laws of the vector additions are not applicable. For example, we can say that there is a wire OA, in it the current is 3 ampere, and in the wire OB the current is 4 ampere, and these two wires they are at some angle. So the total current is 3 plus 4 equal to 7 ampere, irrespective of the angle between the wires OA and OB, as you can see in the diagram. So that's why we say that electric current is a scalar quantity because laws of scalar additions are applicable, but laws of vector additions are not applicable in case of electric current. So that's why we say that electric current is a scalar quantity. Now, conventional current. Conventional current is the current whose direction is along the direction of the flow of positive charge under the action of electric field. You can understand like that. Here the two plates are given. One is having the positive charge, another one is negatively charged. Then the direction of the electric field is from positively charged to negatively charged. And the flow of the positive charge is also in the same direction as of the direction of electric field. Then such type of the current is known as conventional current. In other words, you can say that conventional current, due to the motion of electrons, is in the opposite direction to that motion of electrons. You see here the two plates having the negative and positive charges, then the motion of electron from negative plate to positive plate, and the flow of electron is in the opposite direction of electric current. Then this current is known as conventional current. Another topic is drift velocity. Drift velocity is the average velocity by which free electrons get drifted towards the positive end of the conductor under the influence of external electric field. You can see in the diagram, these electrons are drifted towards the positive end of the conductor under the influence of external electric field. Then this average velocity of electron by which they are drifting towards the positive end of the conductor is known as drift velocity. Now we consider a conductor of length L, area of cross section A, V potential difference applied across the end of the conductor. Then electric field is set up, which is given by E equal to V upon L. Then we are going to find out an expression for the drift velocity. So as you already learned that if m be the mass of each electron and E be the charge on each electron, then under the influence of the electric field, each free electron will experience a force, and that force, you know the formula, F equal to QE. So here we are talking about electron, so that's why in place of the Q you have to write minus E. Then the force is minus E. Now when the electron will experience the force, then it gets accelerated towards the positive end of the conductor. Then we can find out the acceleration of electron, that is A vector equal to F vector upon m, but F vector is minus E vector, so you have to write it A vector equal to minus E vector upon m. This is the acceleration of electron by which it is accelerated towards the positive end of the conductor. Now if we say that tau be the relaxation time, then the drift velocity of free electron is given by Vd vector equal to A vector tau by the simple formula acceleration equal to change in velocity upon time, or average acceleration equal to average velocity upon time. So Vd vector equal to A vector into tau. Then you substitute the value of A vector from here, then you will get Vd vector equal to minus E vector upon m into tau. Now what is the significance of this negative sign? This negative sign indicates that the direction of drift velocity is opposite to the direction of electric field. Now in magnitude, we can write drift velocity Vd equal to E upon m into tau. So this is the expression for drift velocity. Now we find out the relation between electric current and drift velocity. For that purpose, we consider a conductor of length L, area of cross section A, then the volume of the conductor becomes AL. V potential difference is applied across the end of the conductor. Then electric field is set up, that is E equal to V upon L. If we say that small n be the number of free electrons per unit volume of the conductor, then total number of free electrons in the conductor becomes NaL. Because small n, what we are saying that it is equal to total number of free electrons per unit volume. That is small n equal to capital N upon Al. Then the total number of free electrons, capital N equal to NaL. Similarly, you can find out total charge on all free electrons. If we say that small e be the charge on each electron, then the total charge on all free electron, that becomes Q equal to capital N E. Then it becomes Q equal to NaLe, total number of free electrons multiplied by charge on each electron. So this is the total charge on all free electrons. Now find out the time taken by electron to cross the conductor. By simple formula, velocity equal to displacement upon time, then time equal to displacement upon velocity. Here the displacement for crossing the conductor is L and the velocity is Vd, then T equal to L upon Vd. Now you have total charge, you have time, then the electric current I is equal to Q upon T. Substitute the values of Q and T, NaLe upon L upon Vd. This L and this L get cancelled. Finally, you will get I is equal to ANE Vd. For a given conductor, A is constant, N is constant, E is constant, then only the variable is Vd. So that's why I is directly proportional to Vd. The order of the drift velocity is 10 to the power minus 5 meter per second. So this is about the relation between electric current and drift velocity. Now one definition, that is the mobility of electron. Mobility of electron we can define as drift velocity of electron per unit applied electric field. It is represented by mu E, and mathematically we can say that mu E equal to Vd upon E, and its SI unit, you know that the unit of the velocity meter per second, unit of electric field volt per meter. Substitute these values, you will get meter square per second voltage inverse. Or you can say that another unit, velocity meter per second, E Newton per coulomb, Newton inverse coulomb. So finally there are two units, one is meter square per second V inverse, another one is meter per second Newton inverse coulomb. Now another topic is Ohm's law, that you have already studied in the lower classes, and here you understand the concepts. So according to the Ohm's law, electric current flowing through a conductor, as you can see that here I am taking a conductor and V potential difference is applied across the end of the conductor, as a result of which a current I is flowing through it. Then this electric current flowing through the conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference applied across the ends of the conductor, provided temperature, mechanical strain, etc. kept constant. So what we are saying, current is directly proportional to the potential difference. You understand this very carefully. According to the physics, directly proportional means effect comes earlier and cause comes later on. So cause is potential difference, effect is current. So I directly proportional to V. Mathematically you can say that V directly proportional to I. For removing this proportionality sign, we require a constant which is represented by capital R, then V is equal to Ri or V equal to IR. where R is the constant of proportionality and known as resistance of the conductor. Now when we plot the graph between I and V, keeping the factor temperature and mechanical strain remains constant, in that condition, when we plot a graph between I and V, we will get a straight line and that passes through the origin. That indicates the proportionality between I and V. That is I directly proportional to V. Now we deduce the Ohm's law. By this deduction, we understand that on what factors the resistance that depends. And you also understand why in the Ohm's law we are saying temperature and mechanical strain remains constant. So for that purpose, we know that I is equal to ANEVD, that is from the relation of electric current and drift velocity. Then you know Vd equal to E upon tau, E upon m into tau. Substitute this value here, then you will get I is equal to ANE square E tau upon m. But E equal to V upon L. So substitute this value here. Then I is equal to ANE square V tau upon ml. Rearrange it. You will get V upon I is equal to ml upon ANE square tau. Now for a given conductor, m is constant, L is constant, A is constant, N is constant, E square is constant. If temperature is constant, then tau is also constant. So this whole factor is constant, which is known as resistance. So this is the formula for the resistance. That V upon I is equal to R, or rearrange it, then you will get V equal to I R. Now here we deduct the Ohm's law. And also we get an idea that resistance, I will define the resistance in the next slide, that depends on length of the conductor, area of cross section, as well as on relaxation time, and on the nature of material of the conductor. So next topic is resistance of a conductor. Resistance basically the obstruction posed by the conductor to the flow of electric current through it. And its SI unit is ohm, whose symbolic representation is this. And the resistance R, as I already told you, not only depends on the nature of material of the conductor, but also on the dimensions of the conductor. So for a given conductor, the resistance is directly proportional to the length of conductor, inversely proportional to its area, depends on the nature of material, depends on the temperature of the conductor. When we combine these two factors, we will get R directly proportional to L upon A. For omitting this proportionality sign, we require a constant, that is rho. And this rho is known as specific resistance or electrical resistivity. That is the constant of proportionality, which depends on nature of material of the conductor and temperature of the conductor. You understand here, this resistivity or the specific resistance does not depend on dimensions of the conductor. It only depends on nature of material of the conductor and temperature of the conductor. So here now we define resistivity or specific resistance. As we know, R equal to rho L upon A. Rearrange it, then rho equal to R A upon L. if L equal to 1 meter and A equal to 1 meter square, that is, we are considering a conductor of length 1 meter and area of cross section 1 meter square. So when we substitute this value here in this equation, then we will get rho equal to R. So from here we can define a specific resistance or electrical resistivity of a material is the resistance offered by unit length and unit area of cross section of the material of the conductor. That is known as resistivity or specific resistance. Now there are few definitions that you must know. First one is current density. Remember it, current density always we find at a point. Suppose we say that the point is here, this. Then the total current around this point, provided area is held at perpendicular to the direction of the current, then that is known as current density. So current density at a point can be defined as the total current per unit area around that point, provided area is held normal to the direction of the current, is known as current density. It is represented by small j, sometimes with capital J also. So J equal to I upon A. I, you know, ANEVD, substitute here, and then this A and this A get cancelled. You will get NEVD. And the SI unit of current density is ampere per meter square. From this formula, you can say that current is ampere and the area is meter square. So the SI unit of current density becomes ampere per meter square. Now another definition is conductor. Conductor is basically, it is a reciprocal of resistance, which is represented by capital G. So capital G equal to 1 upon R, and SI unit is ohm inverse, that is mho or Simon. Another definition, that is conductivity. It is the reciprocal of resistivity. It is represented by sigma, then sigma equal to 1 upon rho, and rho that we know that from the resistance formula, ml upon ane squared tau, that is resistance, and the rho is m upon ne squared tau. You can see here also. And 1 upon rho is ne squared tau upon m. And the SI unit of conductivity, mho per meter. Now there is a relation between current density, conductivity and electric field that you can calculate or establish by knowing some formulas, that is I is equal to NEVD, rearrange it, I upon A equal to NEVD, then this I upon A is current density represented by J equal to NE square E upon M tau. Means you substitute the value of drift velocity, then you will get this relation. But rho equal to M upon NE square tau, then NE square tau upon M can be written as 1 upon rho. So expression becomes J equal to A upon rho. But sigma equal to 1 upon rho. So substitute this value, you will get the relation J equal to sigma E. That is current density equal to conductivity multiplied by electric field. So this is the relation between J, sigma and E. Now you understand the effect of temperature on resistance. Why we are saying in the Ohm's law resistance should be constant or temperature should be constant. what effect takes place if we rise the temperature of a conductor. That you understand like that. We know that R equal to ml upon ANE square tau. For a given conductor, M is constant, L is constant, A is constant, N is constant, E square is constant, only the variable is relaxation time. So for a given conductor, R is inversely proportional to tau. So when temperature of the metallic conductor is raised, then its atoms or ions vibrate about their mean position with greater amplitude and greater frequency, due to which increase in thermal energy and frequency of collision of electrons which are drifting towards the positive end of the conductor with atoms or ions of the conductor increases. That is, the frequency of collision of electrons with atoms or ions of the conductor increases, as a result of which relaxation time decreases. Since resistance is inversely proportional to the relaxation time, therefore resistance of the conductor increases with rise of temperature. So you remember it in the 1 marks question. What effect takes place on the resistance if the temperature of the conductor increases? So resistance also increases. By another formula, we know that RT equal to R naught within bracket 1 plus alpha T minus T naught. Rearrange this formula, then alpha equal to RT minus R naught upon R naught T minus T naught, where RT is the resistance at temperature T, R naught is initial resistance, that is at temperature 0 degree Celsius, and alpha is the temperature coefficient of resistance. And if the value of alpha is positive, then it is conductor. Obviously, if alpha is positive, then RT is greater than R naught. That is, resistance increases with rise in temperature. And if the value of alpha is negative, then the material is insulator and semiconductor. Similarly, you can also understand the effect of temperature on resistivity. So we know the formula for resistivity, rho equal to m upon Ne squared tau. So for a given conductor, rho inversely proportional to relaxation time. Similarly, you can define or understand the concept. When the temperature of the metallic conductor is raised, then its atoms or the ions starts vibrating about their mean position with greater amplitude and the greater frequency, due to which increase in thermal energy and the frequency of collision of electrons with atoms or ions of the conductor increases, as a result of which relaxation time decreases. Since resistivity is inversely proportional to the relaxation time, therefore resistivity of the conductor increases with rise of temperature. Similarly, we know the formula rho T equal to rho naught 1 plus alpha T minus T naught. Rearrange it, alpha equal to rho T minus rho naught upon rho T within bracket rho naught within bracket T minus T naught. Here alpha is the temperature coefficient of resistivity. If alpha is positive, then the material is conductor. Obviously, rho T greater than rho naught. And if alpha is negative, then the material is insulator or semiconductor. Now, the limitations of Ohm's law. As you know that Ohm's law has been found valid over a large class of materials. But some materials and devices do exist in electrical circuits where the proportionality of V and I does not hold. The deviation broadly are one of the following type. The first one is VI relationship is non-linear. You see the graph between V and I. Up to the certain value, the graph is straight and passes through the origin. But as the current becomes large, then the straight line get converted into the curved line. That indicates that for the small value of the current, up to which the resistance of the conductor remains constant, means it does not change, then Ohm's law is valid. But if the current is large, due to which what happens? Thermal energy generated, temperature of the conductor rises, as a result of which resistance increases, due to which Ohm's law is not valid. So that's why we are getting a curved line. Similarly, another device that we take, that is called water voltmeter. So when we plot a graph, in case of the water voltmeter, the graph, although a straight line, but not passes through the origin. So that's why Ohm's law is not valid in that case also. Here we take another one. Relation between V and I depends on the sign of V. For example, for a PN junction diode characteristics that you will study in details in electronic devices chapter. Here you see that for the positive value of voltage and the negative value of voltage, the graphs are different. So VI relationship totally depend on to the sign of V. Here the graph you are getting, this is called forward bias in the first coordinate, and this is known as reverse bias, which is in the third coordinate. Similarly, the third one is relation between V and I is not unique. Means there are more than one value of V for the same value of the current. And that we can see when we plot the graph between V and I in case of gallium arsenide, that is used for LEDs, light emitting diodes. So here you see that the graph, first it increases, that is in the curved form. So this portion is non-linear region. Then the graph gets down, and that region is known as negative resistance region. For the same value of current, if we take here, then you see that you have a different value of V. So that's why we say that the relation between V and I is not unique. So this is about limitation of Ohm's law. Now another topic is carbon resistor. As you have seen in your houses, so many electronic devices, and in these electronic devices, some components that we have to use, and the one of them component is called carbon resistor. And you can see its diagram here, its picture is here. It has some colored rings. These colored rings will give the value of this carbon resistor. Basically, there are two types of the resistors, wire bound resistors and carbon resistors. But generally we use in electronic circuits only the carbon resistors. How we can determine the value of this carbon resistor? For that purpose you see this diagram. So here we marked A, B, C, D letters. Then these letters, they are having the some significant values. These first two letters, they are representing the two rings from one end, which gives two significant figures. And the third ring, which is represented by C, that is the decimal multiplier. And all these three rings basically gives the value of resistance in ohm. And the fourth ring, which is represented by D, that gives tolerance in percentage. Now how you can determine or find the value of the carbon resistor, that you understand like that. Here again the carbon resistor is drawn here. These rings are divided or we can say that divided by some small spaces and represented by letter A, B, C, D. As I already told you that the first two rings from one end gives the two significant figures of resistance in ohm. Third ring that indicates decimal multiplier, and the last, that is fourth ring, that indicate tolerance in percentage. So we can write one formula so that you can easily calculate the value of carbon resistor. We say that AB into 10 to the power C ohm plus minus D%. Now how you can write the value of these rings on the basis of the colors? For that purpose there is a one table here. So by this table you can remember the values as well as order. For that purpose I make one sentence that will helpful to remember this table and the values, like B.B. Roy goes to bring very good wife wearing gold silver necklace. So you remember this order, all capital letters, they are having the colors name and their values, like first B black value 0, another B brown value 1, red value 2, orange 3, yellow 4, green 5, blue 6, violet 7, gray 8, white 9, and on the basis of color, tolerance percent for gold 5%, for silver 10%, if no color it is 20%. So just you remember, here there are 3 B's. So you remember the order. First B represents black, second B represents brown, and third B represents blue. So by this sentence that help you to remember this table and its order as well as the values of different colors along with tolerance values. For example, we take here, in first example we are saying that the first ring is red, second is also red, third is also red, and the fourth one is silver. So if you remember that table and the sentence, then you can calculate the value. So for the red, its value is 2. So finally what we write? 22 into 10 is power 2 ohm plus minus 10%. Similarly, another example we take, rings are yellow, violet, brown, gold. Then from that table again further you understand and write the values. Yellow's value is 4, violet 7, brown 1, and gold 5%. So 47 into 10 is for 1 ohm plus minus 5%. Sometimes in your exam they gave the values and then they ask write the colors of rings. So that's why it is very important to remember that sentence and order and their values. That is, B.B. Roy goes to bring very good wife wearing gold silver necklace. Similarly, some more examples are given here. So you understand and calculate the values with the help of that table and the sentence, and then verify whether these values are written correctly or not, and try yourself. Now another carbon resistor which is different than the previous one, then how we can calculate its value. So for that purpose you remember it, the color of the body gives the first significant figure and the color of the ends gives the second significant figure. The color of the dot onto the carbon resistor, that gives the decimal multiplier, and the color of the ring, that gives the tolerance in percentage. So here the carbon resistor is given. You see that here the body color is yellow, ant color is red, dot is yellow, and the ring is gold. Then you are having yellow first significant figure, red second significant figure, blue decimal multiplier, and gold tolerance. Then its value 42 into 10 is power 6 ohm plus minus 5%. So you can understand how to write the value of carbon resistor with the help of the table sentence which made for you, and the colors which are giving onto the ring or the another carbon resistor. These methods you have to remember, and then you can find out the value of carbon resistors. Now resistors generally we use in the series and parallel, that you have already studied in lower classes also. So remember it here. When you are connecting the resistances in series, in that case the current through the each resistor must be the same. You remember it. A number of resistors are said to be connected in series if the same current flows through each resistor and there is only one path for the current flow throughout. Then such type of the combination is known as series combination. Here we are taking R1, R2, R3 resistances connected in series. Then you see here there is a one battery is connected. Then a current is flowing, and that current flowing through R1, R2, R3, that is I current. Current remains same, but potentials are different across to each resistor. Across R1 is V1, R2, V2, R3, V3. So total potential is V is equal to V1 plus V2 plus V3. Then according to the Ohm's law, V1 equal to IR1, V2 equal to IR2, V3 equal to IR3, because the current is same. Now V equal to V1 plus V2 plus V3, substitute the values, then you will get V equal to IR1 plus IR2 plus IR3. Take I common, then V equal to I within bracket R1 plus R2 plus R3, then V upon I equal to R1 plus R2 plus R3. If we say that Rs be the total or the equivalent resistance between the points A and B, then Rs equal to, in place of this V upon I, that becomes Rs. And Rs equal to R1 plus R2 plus R3. So in series, you are getting the resistance R1 plus R2 plus R3. Hence, when the number of resistances are connected in series, the total resistance is equal to the sum of individual resistances. That is, resistance in series increases. But you remember it, you have already studied capacitors are series. In that case, the formula is different. That is 1 upon Cs equal to 1 upon C1 plus 1 upon C2 plus 1 upon C3. So don't get confused. Similarly, resistors are in parallel. In that condition, potential difference remains constant across to each resistance. The number of resistors are said to be connected in parallel if voltage across each resistor is same. Here we are taking the three resistors of resistances R1 plus R2 plus R3. They are connected in parallel with a battery. Then a current is flowing through it. When it reaches here, then it divided into three parts. That is I1 plus I2 plus I3. But the voltage across each resistor of resistance R1, R2, R3 remains same. That is V. So according to the Ohm's law, I1 equal to V upon R1, I2 equal to V upon R2, and I3 equal to V upon R3. And total current I is equal to I1 plus I2 plus I3. Substitute these values here in this equation, then you will get I equal to V upon R1 plus V upon R2 plus V upon R3. Now if we say that let Rp be the total or equivalent resistance between the point A and B, then in place of this I we can write V upon Rp. So V upon Rp equal to V upon R1 plus V upon R2 plus V upon R3. V you take common, then V get cancelled. You will get 1 upon Rp equal to 1 upon R1 plus 1 upon R2 plus 1 upon R3. Further you remember, in case of the capacitors are in parallel, it is Cp equal to C1 plus C2 plus C3. But here in case of resistor, it is just opposite. So don't get confused. You just remember the concept. In case of resistors are in series, the current remains the same, and in case of capacitors are in series, charge remains the same. In case of resistors are in parallel, potential remains constant, voltage remains same, and in case of capacitors are in parallel, also the voltage remains same. But the formulas are totally different. They are opposite. So don't get confused. If you like my video, please like, subscribe, press the bell icon. Thank you and have a nice day.